Hello and welcome. I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top headlines this hour. Media tycoon Jimmy Lai is sentenced to 20 years in prison after being convicted of colluding with foreign forces and publishing seditious material. The victim ends Hong Kong's largest national security case and fuels global concern over Beijing's curbs on the city's freedoms. Following this, China says the 20-year sentence for Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai is legitimate and lawful, insisting the case upholds the rule of law. The EU and press freedom groups condemn the ruling, calling for Lai's immediate release. The Prince and Princess of Wales say they are deeply concerned by newly released documents linked to Jeffrey Epstein. Kensington Palace says their focus remains on the victims as renewed scrutiny falls on figures tied to the late financier. Russian drones and missiles strike cities across Ukraine, killing at least 4 people, according to regional officials. Ukraine says it shoots down over 100 drones amid ongoing war and parallel diplomatic talks. Human Rights Watch says an apparent Nigerian military drone strike kills at least 17 civilians in western Niger. The group says at least 13 others are injured when the strike hits a crowded market near the Burkina Faso border. Thousands protest across Australia as Israeli President Isaac Herzog arrives on a multi-city visit. The trip follows a deadly Hanukkah shooting in Sydney and comes after an invitation from Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Lebanon says 14 people are killed after residential buildings collapse in Tripoli as search and rescue operations end. Civil defense officials say 8 people are rescued from the rubble in the Bab al-Tabane neighborhood. Venezuelan authorities say they seek court approval to place opposition figure Juan Pablo Guanipa under house arrest after he is seized in Caracas. The move comes after his release from jail following 8 months in detention over alleged terrorism plot charges. We turn to Japan to start this hour, and the Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi expressed openness to dialogue with China following a period of heightened tensions. In a statement, she emphasized Japan's willingness to continue discussions with Beijing, citing ongoing exchanges of views between the two nations. Takaichi, who recently secured a resounding election victory, assured that Japan would handle its relations with China in a calm and appropriate manner, signaling a desire to ease the tensions that had arisen in November after the remarks on Taiwan. Despite the diplomatic friction, Takaichi's position remains firm on fostering a constructive relationship moving forward. To discuss this ongoing situation in Japan is Major General Gigi Davidi, a professor of international relations and strategic studies. He joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much for taking the time. A resounding victory for Sanai Takaichi today. There are, of course, huge questions over how the Beijing issue will be tackled. Of course, she's seen as a major China hawk, much like the person who she is a protege of, Shinzo Abe. Now Takaichi has a resounding majority in Japanese parliament. How is she expected to handle that friction with Beijing going forward?
Well, Thomas, I think Prime Minister Takaichi's gamble of going for snap polls, barely 3 months into office, has paid off, and she has got absolute majority with 316 seats out of 465, and with an ally, that is the Innovation Party, which has 36 seats. So she has a very resounding majority, and that gives her space for maneuver to pursue her agenda. Now, her challenges are basically, one is to handle relationship with China, and rightly so. When she was in the office, one of the statement that in case Taiwan's security threatened, then Japanese willy-nilly will get involved. Or in other words, that Japanese security is definitely tied to the security of Taiwan. And that's right, because if you take the Western Pacific and you take the East Asia, well, Taiwan is a hinge in this whole geographic region. And in case Taiwan is threatened or there is a conflict with Thailand, with Taiwan, then willy-nilly, it will have impact on the not only Korean Peninsula but also Japan per se. But the point is that she has to handle these relations because tension with China is not in the interest of Japan, because we all know that after all, China is the biggest trading partner of Japan, and concurrently the challenge of Takaichi is also the economy of Japan, because that is another challenge. So they both are interlinked. In case the tension with China is managed, then obviously she can focus on the economy, which is a second challenge. But point here is two issues are very important. First and foremost, there is defense pact with America, and America has certain degree of strategic ambiguity as far as Taiwan is concerned. So therefore, Taiwan issue is linked with the American and Japanese security. So that cannot be wished away. And the second point is how the tension is managed. That is a major challenge, because China is very, very aggressive and very sensitive to the Taiwan issue. And any indication that either Japan or America are trying to sort of kind of interference in the Taiwanese affair will be taken on very sternly with the communist leadership in China. So therefore, I think Prime Minister Takaichi will have to do very tightrope walking to ensure that they do not actually annoy or rub the Chinese on the wrong side. At the same time, they are able to also look after the security interest. Thomas.
Yes, General Davidi, do stay with us as we turn over to our next story. We head to Europe, and the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov expressed pessimism about the future of economic relations with the US. Despite Russia's openness to cooperation, Lavrov dismissed the potential for fruitful economic ties, citing Washington's pursuit of economic dominance. In an interview, Lavrov noted that the US government's policy, including its opposition to the BRICS bloc, hinder the prospects for improved relations. While Russian officials, including envoy Kirill Dmitriev, have hinted at the possibility of economic revival following a Ukraine peace agreement, Lavrov remains cautious. He added that the US was creating artificial obstacles to Russia's integration with BRICS nations. General Davidi joins us once again to discuss US-Russia relations. The big picture here, of course, is that things are still cold, but with warm spots, especially with this new US administration. Of course, we have military communication beginning again with direct talks between the United States and Russia, something that was non-existent under previous presidential administrations. However, we are seeing a situation where nuclear arms control has collapsed. And of course, the main issue being those sanctions and the Russia-Ukraine war. Do you think Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, is correct here in citing that there is not much hope for the development of United States and Russian economic cooperation, given Donald Trump's stance on Moscow?
Thomas, that's right, because if you take the bigger picture, despite the fact that President Trump has gone out of the way to invite President Putin on one-on-one meeting in Alaska last year, and he has taken definite steps, but actually things are not working on the ground. There are 2-3 very important reasons. First and foremost, any peaceful peace initiative on Ukraine has not yielded results. And the war, when President Trump came to power second time, he said that he will stop the war within 24 hours. Now it is more than a year that President Trump has been in office, and there's no movement whatsoever on the peace agreement. Second, of course, are the policies of America, because one is, you can see how America has come very heavily on the Russian export oil, to the extent they have been also impounding the tankers, and they have also laid very heavy tariffs on all those countries which are buying Russian oil. And secondly, of course, President Trump is very vehemently opposed to the BRICS bloc per se, and it terms BRICS as an adversary or as an challenge to the American economy or the American policies per se. So therefore, when you put this thing together, no likelihood of peace on Ukraine in any near future, America's heavy-handedness and very vehement approach to the Russian oil exports, and of course to the BRICS group per se, all these things put together, I think Lavrov is right, that there's no likelihood of any major change in the economic outlook between America and Russia. Thomas.
Yes, Major General Gigi Davidi, thank you so much for joining us here on NewsX World. It's a great pleasure to talk to you, as always. We now turn over to the British Isles, and Jeffrey Epstein scandal continues there, and it haunts the British royal family. The latest release of the files has again heightened the relationship between the King's brother, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and the convicted sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein. While most royal figures have stayed silent, Prince William and Kate have issued their first public statement expressing deep concern over the ongoing revelations and focusing their thoughts on the victims. Prince Edward also commented, emphasising the importance of remembering the victims as well. Meanwhile, King Charles, who removed Andrew's titles last year, has yet to publicly address the scandal. And Princesses Beatrice and Eugene, Andrew's children, have not yet commented, despite their connection to Epstein in the files. This comes as, of course, in terms and for the British royal family, the Andrew problem just won't go away. We have seen the former prince being mentioned in the Epstein files hundreds of times, along with those controversial images that came out of the former prince crouched over that redacted woman, whose photos went viral. Andrew has been the stain in terms of the staple British controversy when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein. Andrew, formerly prince, had his titles stripped last year, maintained contact with Epstein after his 2008 conviction. That has been proven with these files. And of course, he faces now two accusers, one being the late Virginia Giuffre, who took her own life last year and publicly accused Andrew of sexual contact with her when she was underage. It hasn't been quiet for the royal family in this scandal, particularly coming to Andrew, following that catastrophic BBC Newsnight interview with Emily Maitlis in 2019 that destroyed his credibility. Much of the British and world public seemed to see through this, and Andrew has been scarce in public ever since. Joining us now is Gautam Mukherjee. He's a senior journalist. He joins us live from New Delhi. Gautam, thank you very much for joining us. Of course, the Epstein files continues to shake world politics, and the United Kingdom, of course, no exception, and the royal family no exception either. Now we've seen these comments made by the Dutch and Duchess of Cambridge. What does that mean for the scandal? Do you think that the British royal family are doing a good job of taking responsibility, especially for William and Kate's uncle and his connections to the late financier?
It looks to me as if they are reluctant to do very much, and that is, quite sad, because Andrew does not look repentant, and nor does the royal family look like it's punishing him. So, the reports about, he'll have to open his door personally for the first time in his life, because he's only going to be left with 3 royal servants in Norfolk. Now, this kind of thing is a little pathetic, considering the rest of us, the common folk, have to take responsibility for their actions and are punished for them in case they are out of order, to the extent, particularly to the extent that Andrew is implicated in. So I don't know what they're up to. They're trying to get out of it by doing things in small degree in the hope that the public will accept it.
And of course, someone whose statement is absent as far as now is his brother, King Charles. He took away his titles last year. He's no longer a prince. He's had all his military honours stripped from him as well. What do you think the lack of statement from King Charles says about the way that the royal family is navigating things?
Well, I think they're trying to evade responsibility, and they're trying to prevent any real harm coming to Andrew either. He's not being punished at all. And King Charles is hoping that he will be absolved of criticism by doing what he has done, which is really rather cosmetic in nature. It's not enough. It's not enough. It does not seem like it's enough at all.
Gautam Mukherjee, thank you so much for taking the time in joining us. It's always a great pleasure to talk to you. We now move on and over to some breaking news coming out of the Middle East next. And Israeli authorities have informed the United States that they are prepared to carry out unilateral strikes on Iran if necessary. According to local Israeli media, Israeli Defense Ministry representatives shared this message with Pentagon officials last week. Israel has outlined its plans to strike Iran independently if Tehran crosses its red line on ballistic missiles. While Israel does not currently see immediate threats, it continues to monitor the situation closely. Officials also expressed concerns that any potential US action against Iran may be limited, which contradicts Israel's stance. Meanwhile, a new round of negotiations between Iran and the US took place in Muscat, Oman, focusing on Tehran's nuclear program. Saul Sadka joins us now. He's a political commentator. He joins us live from Tel Aviv. Saul, thank you very much for joining us. The Trump administration has been outspoken when it comes to seeing diplomacy first, negotiating with Iran, with, of course, that military threat still there, loaded up in the Persian Gulf. If Israel does interfere here, will it throw all that diplomatic progress that the United States has already said it favors out the window?
Well, we saw the same thing a few times already over the past year and a half, and we have to make a very strong distinction between what is being said and what is being done. And for example, so we read this report, and we don't know, is this the real facts, or has this been leaked specifically to give certain people a message that they might be able to put a piece of paper between the Americans and the Israelis, or perhaps they could play them off against each other. Most likely, this is all messaging. We've seen in the past is that when Israel attacked Iran, even though the USA pretended not to know about it, it was quite clear that they did. And the same thing happened, by the way, with Qatar. The evidence that the Americans were informed of the Israelis' intent to attack Hamas leaders in Qatar is almost incontrovertible. So I would take this with a grain of salt. The Israelis and the Americans are and have been in the past working together to play essentially diplomatic divide and rule games against various parts of the Iranian regime. And that's probably what's happening here again. Though Israel, of course, as we saw in June, certainly does have the ability pretty much do whatever it wants to the Iranians. Once the Iranians no longer have any air defense or any proxy deterrence from Hezbollah or Hamas, the Israelis are basically free to have their way with whatever they want to do in Iran.
The Israelis, of course, have not been silent about their wishes for the Americans to take direct military action in Iran. Of course, the Trump administration has been reluctant. What will this do to the Israeli-United States relationship if Israel is seen undermining those diplomatic efforts by the United States to negotiate its ballistic missiles, its nuclear program, and its support for regional proxies when it comes to negotiations to them? Do you think that Donald Trump will react well to a direct Israeli military action?
Well, like I said, my assumption is, and the evidence for this, that this is already a game, that the Americans and the Israelis, as they have been before, are completely in cahoots. And the messaging that's coming out from Israel and from America is all coordinated to present Iran with an impossible situation. Like, all its decisions at this point are bad ones. It has to make a very bad choice, and it has no way around it. So the Americans are giving the impression they might be willing to negotiate, and as they're willing to negotiate, they're building up an ever vaster array of defensive and offensive capabilities all around Iran.
Apologies for the interruption. Any idea what these red lines could be? When it turns Israel saying that it's outlined its plans to strike Iran independently if Tehran crosses its red line. What is that?
Well, that hasn't been publicly announced. I read through the reports, and it's not clear exactly what that is. My guess, it might be something to do with the re-establishment of production lines that were destroyed by Israel in June, or perhaps it will be the development of more complex and advanced missiles that would be able to better evade the current state-of-the-art defensive apparatus that the Israelis and the Americans have. It could be something like that. Or it could simply be a number. It could be that the Israelis are making assumptions that the Iranians have, say, 1,000 missiles capable of reaching their territory. And they are quite happy with that situation because they know they can bat most of them away. But say they would be more reluctant if they knew the Iranians were trying to build 2,000 more. Or perhaps they are simply worried about the number of launchers, because if you recall, the main issue with these missiles is not how many they have in total, but how many they can fire off at once. Because the only real threat from non-nuclear ballistic missiles is the question of can they be fired off at such a rate as to overwhelm the defensives.
Okay,
and
so
currently we don't have enough launchers to do that.
Okay, so do stay with us as we turn over to a related development. We head over to Gaza, and Israel's defense forces has said that it has killed 4 suspected, what it calls militants, who claimed to attack its troops as the armed men emerged from a tunnel in southern Gaza, and calling the group's actions as blatant violations of the ceasefire. This comes after a US-brokered truce entering its second phase last month, as the violence has continued in the Gaza Strip, with Israel and Hamas accusing each other of breaching the agreement. The IDF has also said that 4 armed terrorists exited an underground tunnel shaft and fired towards soldiers in the Rafah area in the southern Gaza Strip. Following identification, the troops eliminated the terrorists. Saul Sacker joins us once again. 4 more individuals killed in Gaza. What's the current grasp that Hamas still has on the enclave? This occurred near Rafah, of course, where that crossing between Egypt and the Gaza Strip has opened. What do you have to say about this recent escalation in violence? Of course, we've seen over 500 Palestinians killed post-ceasefire. So what more can you tell us about this particular incident?
Well, the details of the incident are unclear, but it just adds to a long line of similar incidents that have been happening since the ceasefire came into effect some 6 months ago. And I have no doubt that they will continue to happen because there is a certain portion of the Hamas authorities who don't like the ceasefire and would like to continue to fight. And they view that as a religious imperative. So nothing will overcome that religious imperative completely. And so the IDF will continue to have to sit around the Hamas-controlled portions of Gaza and gradually denude their abilities to attack. And that will continue to cost the lives of these Hamas terrorists and also occasionally IDF soldiers. But that is the world we live in. You have to constantly hold the line. And hopefully over a period of years, Hamas, as they run out of weapons, will gradually disappear.
Okay, Sol Sadka, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us. It's always a great pleasure to speak to you on these issues. We turn now to Southeast Asia, and the Thai Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul's Jai Thai party won a clear victory in Thailand's general election, raising the prospect that a more stable coalition may now succeed in bringing an end to a period of prolonged political instability. Anutin set the stage for the snap election in mid-December during a border conflict between Thailand and Cambodia, a move political analysts said appeared to be timed by the conservative leader to cash in on surging nationalism. With nearly 95% of polling stations reporting preliminary results released by the Election Commission showed the Jai Thai party winning about 192 seats compared to 117 for the Progressive People's Party and 74 for the once dominant Pheu Thai party. Let's listen in to what the Thai residents had to say.
ธรรมดาครับก็ผมก็กะแล้วว่าเสียหนูมาเพราะว่าอย่างพูดถึงพรรคเพื่อไทยพรรคประชาชนผมไม่พูดถึงนะเอาแค่นี้ยังเด็กเกินไปเด็กมากเห็นหนีไปแล้วตกต่ำเขาก่อนผมเป็นคนเสื้อแดงนะผมนิยมทักษิณนะ30 บาทเนี่ยผมนิยมมากเลยปัจจุบันนี้ผมก็ยังใช้30 บาทอยู่รักษาทุกโรคเนี่ยมาตอนแล้วทำไมแกหนีเพื่ออะไรแกหนีไปแล้วทำไมแกไม่ยอมมารับโทษจบไปแล้วถ้าแกมานี่เอาลูกเอาหลานเอาทั้งตระกูลมาเป็นผมไม่เห็นด้วยผมไม่เลือกเดี๋ยวนี้ผมไม่เลือก
พี่ว่ายุ่งกับมาตรา112มากกว่าใช่ค่ะจะรุนแรงไปหน่อยเพราะเราก็คนไทยเหมือนกันเนาะไม่ว่าคุณจะอายุมากอายุน้อยแต่คือเราเกิดประเทศไทยค่ะเราควรจะรักบ้านเราแต่คุณมาคิดแบบแบ่งแยกกันมันไม่ใช่
We finish this hour with news from the tech world, and the European Commission has ordered Meta to allow rival AI chatbots on WhatsApp after finding the company violated EU competition rules. Meta's own chatbot currently has an advantage with a dedicated button in the app. While it allows customer service bots to use WhatsApp through the business API, it doesn't allow general-purpose AI like ChatGPT to access the platform. Authorities say WhatsApp must be open for fair competition, expecting it to change possibly with a system similar to the system once used on Windows. Meta may need to allow third-party chatbots to initiate conversation or use shortcuts. Well, that's all that we have time for this hour. Keep watching NewsX World for more international news updates. Thank you.